Back in 1980s and 1990s, investors like us were not able to enter the stock market, and the primary reason for that was that there was so little access to information that we were not able to educate ourselves, we were not able to study companies, we were not able to analyze reports properly, and because of that, we weren't able to beat the market. Whereas these information was available to the top mutual funds and institutional investors, so there was an unfair advantage at that time. But all this changed after technology and internet came. You know that with technology and internet, so much information, data is available on every single company now, that you can probably analyze any company and invest in it and gain greater than market returns if you're really good, right? And for that, you have to be updated. You have to read articles, you have to read books, you have to read newsletters, you have to read blogs and all that stuff. But the question arises, why do we need to read these articles, blogs, and all this? Right? So, very simple answer for this is that you need to keep yourself updated, right? There's so many things happening in the world nowadays. For example, you might have invested in some company, say an HDFC Bank, and tomorrow news comes up or something comes up, some structural change comes up in the company, and you want to know that what can that structural change and be, and how it can really impact the company. So you want opinions from great analysts, different people, right? But you can also ask that why not watch news instead, right? I don't prefer news because news people really just want to sell you. Articles also want to do the same thing, but by reading articles, you are really get able to get the insights of the analyst. You are able to understand how the analyst research, so it can help you further in your research also. So that's my perspective of reading articles. You're able to take deep, deep dive into the analyst's perspective, how he analyzes, and integrate it with your analysis. Now, coming to the main question, what articles should we read? Right? This was the main question. This was the question from the start. So, rather than searching for what articles to read, I think it's more important to avoid articles. Like, you need to avoid articles which give you buy or sell recommendations. I see so many Google News articles which say buy at 250, sell at 360 or something like that. And you need to avoid all these articles because they are trying to sell you, and they themselves want to make a profit. So avoid these articles for sure. Secondly, avoid articles which are very much opinionated. That means they're just going on expressing their opinions. They might have invested in some company, so they are praising that company a lot without any relevant facts. So those type of articles don't make any sense, again, because they're trying to sell you. But now, what articles you should read? For that, the simple answer is the article should be full of facts, reasoning, and after these facts and reasoning, they should come up to a conclusion, and maybe express their opinion on that. But that should be, again, on the base of facts and relevant information. By this, you'll find a lot of articles in the market, but now the main task comes that you have to narrow down that, right? So there's no such specific approach that which articles to read or anything like that. What you have to do is you start with one article, just one article. Pick any one article that you think is good. Take that, start reading it continuously, maybe 1 week, 2 weeks, or something. After 1 or 2 weeks, you'll get to know that हाँ ये अच्छा है या बेकार है, इससे वाइब मैच करती है या नहीं, right? If vibe matches, continue with that article and start reading another article. All right, start reading another article after 2 weeks of that first article, and if you find that good, continue with that or drop it. You can pick up from 2 to 4 articles or newsletters or blogs according to your wish, according to the time you have. Don't go above 4 or 5 articles, because after that it becomes very noisy. You'll be full of opinions, different opinions from different analysts, right? So try avoiding reading articles. Try avoiding reading more than four articles. If you want to ask which articles I read, so I read Finshots every morning. It's the first thing that I read in the morning, and I also follow Marcellus blogs, newsletters, all the blogs and articles of Marcellus, because uh, look, Finshots provides me with a broader perspective of what's happening in the market. It keeps me updated in a very logical sense, short, concise, 3 minute read, right? Whereas Marcellus takes me in depth of how they analyze stocks, what are their stocks, and everything. So because of that, my research intensity has increased a lot. So that's why I follow mainly these two articles only, nothing else. I read some random articles which are recommended by Google sometimes. Suppose I've studied like HDFC Life, so Google will recommend me many articles from HDFC Life. Now whichever I think is really adding value to me, I think will add value to me, I go and pick up that article and read it further. That's it. Apart from this, I follow some YouTube channels like SOIC. Is one YouTube channel which my dad recommended, and it's really good. The way they research their stocks is pretty good, so I've started following that. And nothing more apart from this. Now, articles is one thing. Articles will give you a broader perspective and all that. But now what happens is you have to dig deep into different concepts of investing. And for that, you need to read books. Of course, reading books sounds very boring, but understand this one thing. You have to make returns more than the market. And you can't make returns more than the market if you become an average investor. Do whatever the others are doing, right? You have to do something extra. You have to read deeper. You have to read more, and that's the only way you will be able to make returns greater than the market, right? Look, think of it as this way: a single 300 rupees book gives you the insights of 30 years of experience and insights of the author. Can you believe that? 30 years of insights of such a successful person in 300 rupees in a single reading in a single book. Just imagine how amazing is that. Now, if you continuously read different books, you don't have to read many books. One book, one month, in 1 month is enough. Your knowledge will compound like anything over the long term. So you don't have to worry about reading a lot. You have to read continuously, slowly, a little by little, and it will compound to a lot you won't be able to imagine after some few years. Now, one book I would recommend you to read after doing basics of finance is Peter Lynch's One of the Wall Street. So in this book, Peter Lynch explains how he approached investing, and he tells that investing is not as difficult as people think. It's just that people don't research enough, people don't observe enough. If we observe more, like everyone knows about Amazon, right? Everyone knows about Facebook, right? Had we invested in those stocks before, when we knew about that, we could have made tremendous gains, right? So we have been, and it's not like we got to know Amazon now or Facebook right now. We have been knowing it from so many years. Had we invested so many years back, we would have already made tremendous gains. So that's what his investing approach is. He identifies small stocks rather than going for very big companies. He identifies small stocks around himself. Like he identified Domino's and Pizza Hut. Everyone sees how Domino's and Pizza Hut is growing, right? It's become such a big franchise, but at his time it was very small. But he was seeing how rapidly it was growing, and he just went, researched a little, and invested into it. That was a simple way of investing, and this book really simplifies all the investing concepts. So I really like this book, especially for beginners. But on the contrary, this second book that I have for you, which is Howard Marks' The Most Important Thing. So in the first book, we understood that we got to know that investing is simple, easy, right? But in this book, he tells that investing is not easy at all. It's actually very difficult, and he emphasizes on one quote from Charlie Munger, which is, investing is simple, but it is not easy. This quote itself is so simple but very weird and difficult to understand, really. So he goes deep into this quote, and the book is entirely about that how difficult investing really is. Why is it that 80 to 90% of mutual funds are not able to beat the index? Such a simple question, right? They have access to so much information, they are well qualified individuals, they have much more data than us. Then why are they not able to beat the index, right? So these simple questions or these simple answers have been addressed by him in this book. So both these books will give very different perspectives, and you have to it will be really difficult for you to absorb these two books at the same time. So try reading one of the Wall Street first, take some time, and then go to the most important thing. Then apart from this, I have two books which are more of the Indian context. So first is Unusual Billionaires. It's written by Saurabh Mukherjee, who is also the founder of Marcellus, the blogs which I had talked about. Amazing guy. But if we come to the book talks about the screening criteria that he uses for investing in a company. He has very simple screening criteria by which he is able to filter out the top stocks in the world. Sorry, in India. That book is especially for just India. So he not only tells about the screening criteria in that, he goes and find the stocks using that screening criteria. He comes up with some 7 8 stocks from that, and then taking those stocks one by one, he analyzes and gives the history of all those stocks over the past so many years. This is definitely a very one of my favorite books, because look, screening criteria and all that is fine, but when he tells about the history of companies, I'm able to identify that if I'm reading further annual reports, how do I have to look at companies which are going to win in the future. So that part really clarifies many things that I had never thought of before. So it's a good read, definitely. Then there's another book, but this is not for college going students. Like, there's no need for college going students to read, because it's more about different asset classes, even insurance and personal finance. So I don't think college students really need to focus that much on personal finance, because um, it's more important to get more exposure to the stock market, take a little bit more risk during your college years. But if you're in your final year or you're working, then this book is definitely a must read for you, because Monica in this book goes a lot into a lot of detail explaining about which asset class you should invest in. Should you take insurance as an investment, or should you invest in real estate? Should you invest in the stock market? And she goes into depth about explaining how underrated index funds are. We all think that index funds are boring. Anyone can beat the market, right? We enter the stock market, we think that doing a little bit of research will help us gaining more than the market returns. But she goes on explaining how underrated index funds are, how much returns they have been giving for the past years, how much money you can actually make if had you invested in during those lows. So it's a very good read and one of the best sellers. All these books are best sellers. So definitely you can go and read these books. There are so many books out there in the market. All you have to do is just Google it up. Just Google best books, anything, right? And you'll find that. You just have to put in the work, right? Yeah, and one more thing. I told you about the book which I read, most important thing. So I found that book very interesting. I wish I had read it some months back, because that book opened my brain up. It's like, so many times we get overconfident in investing, right? Everyone of us gets overconfident in investing at some point of time. So that book really grounded me down, really brought me back to my senses, and it really made finance stuff for me. So I want to share all that knowledge with you guys in my next video, and I'll see you then. Have a great day. Bye bye.